And welcome everybody to Flicker Effect. This is episode 272, and we're recording on Sunday, October 28th, 2018. I'm David Lotz. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
What's up?
What's up? It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us. It's been a while. It's been a long time since it's just been the two of us.
It's not often that there's just one-on-one episodes.
No.
But here we are. I'm thrown off. It's just the two of us. I'm so used to, I don't even know what to say. I'll say real quick, spoiler effect. We've talked about that show on here before. Just want to remind everybody we have a kind of a separate spin-off podcast now called Spoiler Effect. In that show, we like to attempt to sit down right after we see a movie to kind of give our immediate reactions to the movie. And we talk about spoilers, hence the name Spoiler Effect. We are 3 episodes in on that. We just recently recorded one for Bad Times at the El Royale. And
hot off the presses, like literally just finished.
Yeah, we literally just finished recording it. So yeah, make sure to check that out. It has its own podcast feed. The first couple episodes were in the Flicker Effect feed if you're subscribed, but otherwise, all future episodes, it's got its own feed. You can find the link over at our website, flickereffect.com. And it's also an Apple podcast now as well. So just search for Spoiler Effect. Sorry, that's 2 words. You should be able to find us. Anyway, with that, what's up, man? It's almost Halloween.
It is.
It is.
It is. I know. I don't know. For me, Halloween isn't as much as it used to be. Obviously, I've gotten older and sort of grown out of it, but there's definitely something about that time and being able to go around and seeing the houses decorated and just that general vibe. And last week on our show, we talked a lot about just the different Halloween stuff that was Halloween themed movies and TV shows that were out. And there was something I actually meant to ask, but we were kind of running long, and so I didn't want to stretch it any further. But I will ask you, and it's a shame I can't ask Michelle and Yasha, but do you have either a go-to Halloween movie that you like to watch at this time of the year, or 2, just a favorite Halloween movie of all time, just Halloween themed, or scary movie, or of something of that nature that kind of is along those lines of fitting in with that motif?
Favorite, I'll have to think about that. I'll start with, and we kind of touched on this last episode, like you just said, how we talked about different stuff we like to watch, and I mean usually this time of year, and it's funny, as much as I kind of hinted that I feel like it's now getting overshown these days, but I will say every year, once it finally feels like fall in Florida, which this year, man, it came late. Like it's literally like this weekend is like finally the first weekend of fall here. I like watching Hocus Pocus, which has become very, very popular now for being a Halloween film. And I like watching that. I don't know.
Did we mention?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, did we mention that it was back in theaters last weekend?
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know if we mentioned. I didn't mean that it was back in theaters last weekend, but I meant like last weekend. Did we mention that it was in theaters?
I don't know. I don't think we talked about that.
Because I was looking at movies this weekend to see, and I saw on the AMC app, that it was playing in theaters. I was like, I didn't realize they had put it back in theaters for the season.
You saying that, I didn't realize that, but that's totally not surprising to me. I mean, it's become so popular now that, like I was saying that last episode, I feel like it's going to hit a point of burnout for everyone, Yeah. But just because it is such a thing these past few years, and to the point that, now it's in theaters and, I think out in California, you guys have those Spirit Halloween stores. I think they're nationwide, aren't they? They kind of pop up Halloween costume shops, and they've got a whole line of Hocus Pocus costumes and pop vinyls that are exclusive to Spirit that you can only buy them there for Hocus Pocus. And man, it's huge. Like,
Well, it's Disney, so I mean, I guess I could see why they make it a thing.
yeah, they are totally capitalizing on it, like big time. But yeah, I like watching that. I will say in the past few years, my go-to like Halloween night movie has been watching Rocky Horror Picture Show Halloween night.
Okay.
I like watching that Halloween night. Yeah, I don't know. There's just kind of like some other just horror movies I try to watch. I think I mentioned last time Bram Stoker's Dracula. I like that one. Even though this year I haven't watched it yet. And and now I've been caught up so much in The Haunting of Hill House that I don't know if I will watch it before Halloween now, because now I really just want to finish that show. That's a whole another conversation. But
Well, I mean, I guess since we're kind of headed that road, what when you say you're trying to finish it, do you mean finish it because it's so good and you can't wait to see how it ends, or finish it so you can get on to the next kind of thing?
no, because it's so good, I can't wait to see how it ends. Now I'm all in on that show. I will say, after watching the first episode, which I think last podcast, that's all I had seen was the first episode.
Yeah.
I was intrigued, but I wasn't like completely sold on it yet. I was like, this is interesting, but we'll see. And now I'm 5 episodes in. It's a 10 episode season, especially after this last episode that literally I just watched before we started recording tonight.
Wow.
It felt like a kind of, I'm not giving away any spoilers, but it felt like kind of like definitely one of those turning point episodes. Like, all right, now what's the second half of the season going to be like now? Like, kind of thing, you know? The show's very good. I'm pretty impressed with it. So I haven't finished it yet, but so far I will say I definitely recommend it if anyone is looking for something kind of spooky to watch on. And that's not just a movie, it's a show. It's kind of nice to see something like this that's in an episodic format, not just a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, I'm still where I left off, 3 episodes in. I haven't had a chance to come back to it, but I will say for the 3 that I've seen, I'm kind of where you are after the first one when you had saw it. Is just I'm intrigued. I haven't got completely enveloped in it to where I'm just wanting to hit play on the next one as soon as the last one ends. But obviously, I'm going to finish it just because I've heard good things about it. And it's not to say that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I am into it. It's for now, at least within the 3 episodes, it's just been more or less a slow burn, not too much happening, but certain things happening, you know? So I imagine at some point that starts to ramp up.
Yeah, it already feels like it's ramped up a bit. Like, again, this last episode I watched, but I mean, it's still 5 episodes to go. So I'm like, man, how's this last 5 episodes going to play out? I'm digging it. But what about you? Do you have like go-to Halloween films that you like to watch, or?
I don't. And, a lot of that ties into my whole thing of not getting the chance to really rewatch stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, that's usually the main reason why I don't typically have a go-to for Halloween. But I will say that if I were to pinpoint a movie that I feel as though it's my favorite, I hesitate to call it a horror movie, but something that fits within that branch, that family tree of horror / suspense / scary / thriller, whatever you want to call it, is Poltergeist, the first movie. I remember seeing it as a kid in the theater, and if I've told the story before on the podcast, but maybe someone else hasn't heard it, but I've never been scared of scary movies. I've just always have appreciated what they do and the storytelling aspect of it. When I was a young kid, I'd say probably like 8 or 9. I remember going over to a friend's house when I was living in Florida, and he had a babysitter a lot of the time. And so I'd go over there and the babysitter would like let us watch all kinds of stuff. And we used to just always watch tons of just scary movies like a lot of Stephen King, tons of Stephen King, and it was probably why I had such an affinity for his stuff early on because we'd watch like Christine, we'd watch Children of the Corn, we'd watch Cujo, just all that stuff and just everything else mixed in, and like the Halloween stuff, the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the Friday the 13th movies. So all these are all part of my growing experience, and never having a fear of them, never having nightmares or any of that stuff, just always just enjoying them for what they were. And Poltergeist was the one movie that I really felt just like in a weird sort of way, it felt real, and it was done in such a way and told in such a way that it just always stuck with me as being particularly well done and well made, to where it's always sort of been that high point. And then there was a point in time when I remember I'm older than my sister. She's about 6 years younger than me. And so there was a point in time when that movie was out and I was watching it, and she wasn't allowed to watch it. She was way too young to be watching that movie. And at some point in time, I remember she snuck on, how you used to do as a kid. I'm sure tons of people listening have had that experience where the parents are asleep or whatever, and you're still awake, and you sneak downstairs or you sneak in the living room and you watch HBO, because that's where all the rated R movies and everything else was on. And so she did that one day and watched Poltergeist and didn't tell anyone she did it. And then I just remember hearing from my mom the next morning that my sister had nightmares because she ended up going downstairs and watching Poltergeist. And so that, at that age, me and my sister had such a contentious relationship, just cats and dogs sort of thing, older brother, younger sister. And I can't tell you the delight and glee I had when I knew that she had nightmares from watching that movie, just because we didn't get along. And so I was so happy to hear that, because I was like, I remember telling her, I was like, that's what you get, because you shouldn't have been watching it anyway. And so it was just like so happy just to see she kind of get hers for once. And I think that also helped endure the movie to my heart. But yeah, that's definitely probably my favorite horror-ish movie.
I forget when I first saw Poltergeist, but I know I didn't see it when I was too young, and it's probably good I didn't, because that was definitely the kind of movie that if I saw as a child, I would have been fucked in terms of trying to sleep. Like, just that's the kind of stuff that really frightened the crap out of me. That and like, I think anything to kind of do with like satanic kind of devil demon kind of stuff, but
right.
Yeah, ghosts and that kind of, that would have messed me up if I had seen it when I was too young. I think for some reason, the first movie I'm trying to like reach back into the memory banks of like, what was the first horror film I really saw? And I want to say it was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
And I think I remember, like, I don't know how old I was when I saw it, but I feel like I saw it, and then I remember being, I think, proud of myself that I was still able to sleep that night and I didn't have any nightmares. And I remember waking up the next day going, man, I did it. Like, I saw a scary movie and I slept just fine. I was good. Like,
and ironically, that's the kind of movie where it's all about going to sleep and having nightmares.
Exactly.
So you would think that would be the one that you would have the worst nightmares.
Yeah. But no, I feel like I'm forgetting some movies like I like to watch around Halloween and they're not coming to mind. I mean, I like to watch Nightmare Before Christmas, another family film, but
So now, is that considered a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie? I've never quite understood where that one sort of falls for people.
I mean, you've seen it, obviously, right?
No.
Holy shit. Wow. Okay. I don't think there's any debate there. That's a Halloween movie. I mean, okay. Yes, the movie involves Halloween Town, and mainly Jack Skellington, who leads Halloween Town. The movie's about him like taking over Christmas for a year because he discovers that there's other holidays, and he is, completely like interested in Christmas once he sees it and decides he wants to do Christmas. And so, yeah, obviously it involves Christmas, but everything about it is just the overall aesthetic of the film is just very Halloween. It is Halloween. That's a Halloween movie. Okay. So, obviously this is not the first time, you've heard that debate, or, it's not like you saying that is like, oh, people debate this. Like, I hear it all the time. Right, like, is it Christmas or Halloween? But I'm like, come on.
Sort of like the Die Hard argument.
Yeah, that one. But no, Nightmare Before Christmas is definitely a Halloween movie. I mean, not to say I wouldn't watch it around Christmas, but just because I'd probably watch it year round, not really care. But. Man, I haven't seen Nightmare Before Christmas. Jeez.
Yeah, that's another one on the list that just hasn't happened. I mean, I think I've seen parts of it, but I've just never seen the whole movie from start to finish.
You've seen Rocky Horror Picture Show, right?
Same thing. Parts. Never from start to finish.
Shit. Wow. Man, I am flying out there, and we're going to have a talk. No. Man.
Yeah.
Wow, in parts.
Yeah, those holes, they persist. I slowly try and plug away at them, but, it's a work in progress.
I will say with that one, my recommendation for anyone who's never seen Rocky Horror Picture Show, because obviously these days it's all you hear about is the theater experience of seeing it in a movie theater, a midnight showing, and people kind of doing the whole like saying things during the movie and throwing things and shit, which is great. Mm-hmm. Like, I highly recommend that. But for me, if you've never seen the movie at all, I definitely fall in the camp of you should see the movie first, like at home or something. Like, see the movie without the audience experience first, and actually see it, and then do the audience experience. Because to me, like, going and having the audience experience, having not even seen the movie before, I don't even know how you would. That doesn't make sense to me. But.
It's kind of like, I guess, for current day and age, how a lot of people felt about The Room, where they have those viewings of The Room, and right. People would be interactive with the movie, and it's sort of taken a life of its own at some point. But for people before the movie really sort of hit its prominence last year with I can't even think of his name all of a sudden. James Franco version of the movie. I can't remember.
It was the Disaster Artist, right?
Yes, Disaster Artist. Before it kind of hit its peak at that point in terms of awareness for people, I think a lot of people would say, oh, instead of going to one of those fan film showings, you should watch it on your own first, just to sort of really get a feel for why the movie's bad. Because if you kind of go into the audience experience, it heightens it in a way that you're not sort of being able to, you're not seeing it through a clear filter. It's being brought in through other experience of this sort of lively event, as opposed to just kind of really experiencing it on your own.
Right. I mean, because with Rocky Horror, it's like, if you haven't seen it and you don't know these songs and everything, and then everyone is like yelling their kind of reactions to it when the first time you're watching it, I feel like it wouldn't quite be as funny or make sense, like, because you don't know what they're almost reacting to yet. You haven't seen the movie before, so yeah. Plus, I just like the movie. I mean, I love the audience experience. It's amazing. It's as long as you have a good, fun audience to see it with, it's great. But I also just like watching the film. Like I said, I like watching a Halloween night now, usually.
I've only been a part of that kind of experience with two things, and ironically, they're by the same person. And that's when I've gone to Comic-Con and they have the audience viewing of Dr. Horrible.
Right.
And also when they'll do the Buffy episode Once More with Feeling. and both of those are interactive with the audience,
Right,
and
right.
certain things that will happen. They'll give you like this sheet of paper, and it'll tell you, kind of prompt you to do certain things, or here's where you say this or whatever, and it's pretty fun, especially once people are all in on it.
Yeah. I've never done the Dr. Horrible thing. I've always wanted to.
Oh, it's fun.
They do that
Yeah.
at Dragon Con, I think, every year too, and I've never been.
Oh, okay. Did you get a chance to see anything else besides Haunting of Hill House?
No, just Bad Times at El Royale. We just, like I said, recorded a spoiler effect for that. And yeah, without talking spoilers, I will say I really enjoyed it. You had talked about it a couple episodes back and mentioned that you really liked it. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed it. It's hard not to watch it and kind of compare it to like a Tarantino film. It definitely has that feel about it, the way the story's told. But, you know, I don't think it's the kind of movie, though, that needs to be compared too much to, oh, is it as good as Tarantino? I think Drew Goddard kind of stands on his own, and I'm definitely curious to see him make more movies past this and see what he does, because I like what I've seen so far for sure with Cabin in the Woods and Bad Times. I really like the movie.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah. And I actually did get to see some stuff this weekend, and that was another one of the movies that I fit into my weekend. But
saw something twice.
Yeah, that's such a rarity for me. If it's not a comic book movie, I generally don't see it more than once, which isn't any kind of statement on the movie that I've seen. It's just, trying to see as much stuff as people recommend out there or that's being talked about, and I don't know that it's OCD, but it's definitely something for me to feel like I'm part of that conversation. In fact, I think someone coined a phrase for what that is when you feel like you're being left out of the conversation of stuff. I would have to look it up, but someone has coined a phrase for what that feeling is when you're kind of have a fear of being left out of the conversation of new shows or shows that everyone's talking about.
Right.
But, yeah, so I got to watch some stuff on Netflix, and Netflix is all at once amazing and then terrible.
Terrible.
I say that because they have got to have the worst marketing team in the history of marketing.
Because they don't market anything.
No, and they get so much content, but you would never know it's there unless someone tells you it's there or you hear about it, because it used to be, it was pretty sparse and you could kind of see it show up in the menu. But now there's so much, you don't even know it. And it doesn't, and I would just want an option to, and maybe it's there, but it's, again, because of the interface, it's not so prevalent that I know that it's there. But I need to see something that just shows me see all and just shows me everything from A to Z, because I feel like it's curating to me in a way that it thinks it knows everything that I want to see, but there may be some things it's missing that I would probably check out, but it's not curating it for me. So I just want to be able to see everything and then just sort of take an hour or however long it takes to just scroll through all of it and see, everything and add it to my list, because otherwise it'll get lost in the shuffle if I don't add it to my list. I'll forget about it and forget it, and it gets lost in that sea of stuff. But the other coin on that, or the other side of that coin, is that they're amazing because they have so much stuff to watch that's legitimately good, and whether it's TV series or these movies that have come out. And one, in fact, movie that I got a chance to see was this movie called The Night Comes for Us. Have you heard of it?
No, I don't know if I've heard of that.
Okay, so let me see if I can get this right. I'm looking at the IMDb, and the director's name is Timo Giajanto, and he wrote and directed this movie, and it stars Iko Uwais, who was in The Raid and Raid 2, and Joe Taslim, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was also in The Raid 2. And the story is about Joe Taslim plays the main character, in which he works for this gang as an enforcer, and he comes upon this village where they've just sort of wiped out everyone, and there's a young girl there, and in that moment he's supposed to kill her but decides not to, and by not killing her, it effectively turns the triad gang against him, and now they're on the hunt for him and this girl. And Iko plays someone who wants to be a big shot in this triad gang. So his job is to hunt down Joe's character Ito in this film and find him and the girl and take them out. And that's essentially the premise, but none of that matters. There literally is a story just to move from scene to scene of all the violence and brutality that's in this movie. And when I say violence and brutality, I've seen a lot of sort of kung fu movies and action movies in my day. I don't know that I've ever seen anything this brutal and violent. It's okay. Let's say the best way I could put this is all of a sudden I'm blanking on his name, but the same guy who made the Hostel movies.
Oh, Eli Roth.
Yes. If Eli Roth made a kung fu movie, I think this is what it would be. It is brutal. There's it doesn't, for one, okay, so a lot of the actors, or pretty much all the actors in this, I think are Indonesian, and they have their fighting style. And if you've seen The Raid and The Raid 2, you know the actors are also the stunt people, so they don't have to say cut and have someone else in there and shoot the scene from a different way. You see all the action taking place. So you couple that with the fact that the action becomes brutal, where there's people's body parts being flayed open and just visceral, just people getting cut up and bones being smashed and protruding from the body. There's just so much of it. And it's almost relentless in terms of, once the action starts, there's just very few moments to sort of catch your breath, but it's all done in the service of just this brutal action film, and I loved it. I mean, it sounds like it's a nightmare for some people. I know Yasha would not be able to watch this because he doesn't go for gory type things,
right.
And this movie definitely has its fair share of gore. So, yeah, he would not be able to watch it, but I absolutely loved it. And if you're into that type of movie, and it's subtitled, so just be prepared for that as well. But there is a certain amount of English in it as well, because some of the actors do speak English, and so you get that as well. But if you're into that type of action or movie at all, you absolutely have to watch that, and it's on Netflix. So I mean, I absolutely recommend someone checking that one out. The Raid movies take that and then just up it a notch in terms of the brutal violence, and that's what you have in this movie. So definitely check it out.
Nice. Nope, I had not heard of that.
Yeah. Just even if you have a chance, just watch the little trailer that they show on Netflix when you hover over a movie, just to kind of get a sense of it.
Okay. I'll do that.
The other movie I watched, another Netflix movie that I'd been hearing about for maybe about a month, and I've been meaning to watch it, just had never had a chance, and it's called Hold the Dark. Have you heard of this one?
I have not heard of that either.
Yeah, see, there's that marketing just at work. Netflix. So this one is directed by Jeremy Saulnier, and I'm pretty sure you've heard the name. If you haven't heard the name, you definitely know the movie that he did that was one of my favorite in the year that it came out, which was A Green Room.
Oh, okay.
And he's also done a few other things, but that's mainly what he's been known for at this point. But also who's starring in the movie. You've got Jeffrey Wright and Alexander Skarsgård.
Nice.
And the movie is about this, basically like this wife. She lives out in, I want to say it's Alaska, and sort of in the wilderness. And there's I'm trying to think, sorry, of some of the plot line. Her son gets taken by a wolf, and she reaches out to Jeffrey Wright's character, who had wrote a book about a time that he kind of had been in the situation where he had to kill a wolf. So she asked him to hunt down this wolf and kill him. And Alexander Skarsgård is her husband, and he's in deployment. He's away overseas fighting, and he ends up having to come back because he gets injured. And so beyond that, there's this whole mystery that happens shortly after Jeffrey Wright's character kind of goes off hunting for this wolf. And it's intriguing just because of this whole story that's being played out in terms of all the different things and elements that are going into it. And it's wonderfully shot. It just really shows a level of what the cold and wilderness is like, and just the story in and of itself I thought was pretty compelling. And it reminded me of so you know how much I like the movies that came out with I forget the actor's name, but I think it's Taylor Sheridan, and he had like the three different sort of movies that were not necessarily connected, but they all kind of had that similar sort of vibe about them. The one that was most recent, which is actually, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it was the one with Jeremy Renner, and I want to say it was called Wild River or Wind River.
Oh, Wind River. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
so
like that a lot.
Yeah, I love that one. And so there was Wind River he did, and then he did Hell or High Water, and I love that one as well. And there was like a third one, but it's escaping my memory at the moment. But it has that kind of vibe of those type of movies. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think it was one that I just been hearing about, and I was like, okay, let me check it out, and it delivered. Jeffrey Wright's always been a great actor, and people, I'm sure, if you watch Westworld, you're familiar with Jeffrey Wright.
Oh yeah.
So he's plays a central character in this, and it's just amazing to me that this is a movie that people haven't been talking about more. But yeah, it's absolutely something that I think you should be checking out if you are at home watching Netflix and looking for something good.
So basically what we should be doing, and I'm sure there's other podcasts that are already doing this, but we should just start watching Netflix and telling people, okay, this is what you should be watching on Netflix.
Seriously, I don't know. I mean, you might be right. There may be other podcasts out there doing it, but I haven't really seen them, or I've been trying to look for some.
Oh, you have?
Just literally, what's that?
I said, oh, you have. You've looked.
I've kind of looked. I mean, it's been a little while since I've looked, but I remember at one point in time trying to find something that sat down and week to week reviewed just Netflix stuff, and I don't know that I've seen it, but yeah, maybe I'll do another look for that, just because there's so much, and
maybe
it's so convenient because you're at home a lot of times and you can have the opportunity to watch it as opposed to having to go out to the movie theater.
We have a format change coming. Netflix. Because seriously, I mean, you're right. I don't watch nearly the amount that you watch on Netflix, but I use Netflix for things that I do watch, and every time I go in there, I will see things as you scroll through that I'm like, what in the fuck is this? I'm like, I've never heard of this. And you're right. They almost have zero marketing. I mean, there's been some exceptions. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. I remember when Glow came out, that I actually saw billboards here in Orlando for Glow, and I was like, huh, okay. So for whatever reason, they're pushing this show, like marketing wise, but there's been tons of stuff that I'm like, they don't. And then it leaves me, of course, thinking, well, is there a reason they're not? Is it not very good? Like, you would think like if this stuff is all really excellent, they would be kind of pushing a little more. And I will say with the Haunting of Hill House, that's a show that I think I saw some buzz about it on social media and some other news outlets more than I've seen for other Netflix stuff. So that kind of caught my attention. I was like, it's a, kind of a haunting kind of theme thing around Halloween, and I'm hearing some good buzz, so maybe I will check this out before I check out other things on Netflix. But and I even have heard, I think, some radio commercials for Haunting of Hill House. But
see, and that's the thing. Okay, I haven't heard that, but if you think about it, Netflix has so much money. Why are they not advertising Haunting of Hill House during the World Series, or playing it as a bumper in front of like the movies that you go see in the theater or something? It's like
I don't know.
I really don't understand how they're not pushing their stuff more.
It's like they just maybe hoping for word of mouth, and
I guess,
and that works for them. And it still blows my mind. Like, we don't know their financial numbers, I guess, but I mean, when we see the amount of stuff they're pumping out and the quality of it, I'm like, how are they doing this? And they're not even marketing any of it, really. They just make it and they throw it on there and hope for the best. Like, it's great. I'm not complaining in a way, especially with the quality of most of the stuff. It's fantastic. Like the Marvel shows have been, I love. And then this show that I've been watching now, The Haunting of Hill House, I'm like, man, this is great. And I was just thinking about it. The last episode I was watching, halfway through it crossed my mind. I'm like, we have seen some stuff like this, like American Horror Story on broadcast TV, cable TV anyway. But for the most part, still nothing quite like this. Like, other than, HBO and some of the paid channels, like the stuff we're getting on Netflix, like that show is just, it's unique, and you're not getting that anywhere else, really.
No. And that's, I think, part of the thing as well, where to me, it's kind of like if Netflix were to take some of this material, and we get the sense that obviously their ratings, they know it, and that's why they cancel certain things over other things. But I had been hearing, and I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast or talked about it offline or what, but I had been hearing about the idea that Netflix may eventually go to releasing shows, instead of it all dropping at once, that you would get it on a weekly basis.
Right.
Because of the idea that it's on and gone. There's this buzz for this time that it's out for that weekend, maybe 2 weekends, and then it just sort of disappears from the conversation.
Right.
But if they were able to release it on a weekly basis, it keeps that conversation going, and then it can roll right into the next thing, and so on and so forth. So I feel like I could see that being a great possibility for them, just based on the fact that they do seem to rely so heavily on word of mouth that, for them, it may be more beneficial for them to have that weekly conversation as opposed to it all being done in the weekend that it drops.
Yeah. Though I feel like that would be an interesting move if they did, because, I forget his name, the head of Netflix. I feel
Ted
like
Sarantos, I think.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a few times where he's come to the defense of the concept of dropping everything at once and binge watching, and I feel like that's been like this kind of stance Netflix has always taken. Like, no, we are going to continue to always just drop whole seasons. Like, even though everyone else is like, binge watching's not great, you shouldn't do it, it kind of kills the experience. But they've always taken this point of view of like, no, we don't care. People like this, and we're going to do it. And for them to then change and go, we're going to start doing because Hulu does that, and Amazon Prime, I believe, for the most part, releases stuff. They don't drop everything at once, do they?
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because I think, I'm thinking of Mrs. Maisel. I don't think that all dropped at one time. I could be wrong.
I don't think they do. I think they release week by week, I think. But I don't really I don't watch any shows on Amazon Prime, so I wouldn't be the one to ask, but
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting if they made that move to finally just do that. But
Yeah. Well, we'll
there's
see.
a lot of stuff on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt. Like, I could easily just kill my DirecTV Now subscription and Hulu and Amazon. I mean, Amazon. If all I ever did with Amazon was watch stuff on the streaming service, get rid of that and just purely watch Netflix, I would still have way more than I need to watch.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I could be right there with you. And that's coming from someone who sees most everything. And I could probably be okay for quite some time if I just had Netflix. But
there's times where I saw an ad on Netflix the other day for something I hadn't heard of. And I remember being I'm watching this trailer and thinking, this looks pretty good. And I was relieved when I saw it was a movie, because I was like, you know what? Because if this is a show, I'll never get to it. Like, 10 hours right off the bat of like, oh, am I going to have time to consume 10 hours? And then I saw it was just a movie. Oh, a 2-hour movie. Maybe I will watch it. It was a Chris Pine film.
yeah, that movie that's coming out next month.
Yeah. I'm blanking on the name.
He's
right
like,
now.
It kind of sort of looks like Matter of fact, it is Braveheart, actually. I was going to say it kind of looks like Braveheart, but it is
Outlaw
Braveheart.
King.
It's the story of the guy who portrays William Wallace, who was like, he tries to get him to help fight, and then he and his father gets into his ear, and he kind of turns on him. Okay. I forget that character's name, but it is that character in his story, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but yeah, the movie's called Outlaw King, and yeah, I just saw the trailer, I think, for the first time for that yesterday or the day before, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. I would watch this. But I was like, man, if it's a show, yeah, am I really going to get to it? Do I really have time for this? But a movie, okay. Yeah, maybe I would sit down one night and decide, okay, I'm going to watch this movie if I heard good things about it.
But now, do you think you would get to it had it been a weekly series?
Maybe.
See? So that kind of helps make the case for a reason why Netflix might want to just go to that model.
I'm definitely not against that idea of making it a weekly series, like, because of that reason. There's times where it's like, and I know, man, it's already, I gotta watch 10 hours or 13 hours or something, and I have all these other things I want to watch. Do I want to jump into this? But when they spread it out and I have no choice, then maybe maybe I could play catch up, and then I feel like I'm a part of the conversation every week when it comes out. Like Game of Thrones. Like, I love that Game of Thrones doesn't drop like all at once.
Absolutely.
And every week we can get all like at work, oh my God, did you see the episode? And blah, blah, blah. And
Water cooler,
exactly. Like, I would hate if we didn't have that and they just dropped it all together, and then everyone had to like try to keep their mouths shut, and screw that.
Yeah, and it makes me a bit curious to see what Disney will do when they have their streaming service, if they'll follow the weekly release model or if they'll drop it all at once.
True. I hadn't thought about that.
I suspect that they'll do a week-to-week thing.
You think so? Yeah.
I say that because... I
think you're right. I think they will.
Yeah, I say that because, one, I think that they, won't have that much material in the beginning anyway. So they'll probably want to stretch what they have. But also just because I think the nature of a lot of the stuff that they will initially have could be seen as potential water cooler material, like a Game of Thrones type of show. When you drop something like The Mandalorian, it may benefit from that conversation happening week to week as opposed to just dropping it all at once. So I suspect they'll go to a weekly release for their stuff.
I think so too. I'd sure bet that's what they'll do.
And if I was them, not that I'm getting paid for this or anything on their payroll, but I would do the opposite in which Netflix does. And granted, Netflix is at the point that they're pumping out so much. I don't know that they could do this at this point anyway, but Disney would be in a position to, like, let's say when that Lady and the Tramp movie comes out, the live action version on the streaming service, that could be their one premiere movie for the month, and then they can get behind marketing that movie in different places because it's a lot easier because they're not having 10 movies that just premiered in that same month, week to week to week or whatever, 2 per week or whatever the case may be. And so it's a little bit easier, but I definitely think that that's sort of a promising aspect for their service, is that you will be able to know what's there and find it and know exactly what's coming.
Right.
But, well, I did mention that I ventured out into the theaters and was able to watch stuff as well. So another movie that I had a chance to see was mid-90s.
Oh.
Excuse me. Yeah. So that is the one that was written and directed by Jonah Hill. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And it's the story of this young kid who's 13 in the movie, played by an actor named Sonny Solchik. And I don't think I've seen him in anything else. But he and his older brother, who's played by Lucas Hedges, are with their single mom. And this kid, who in the movie, his name is Stevie. Stevie's kind of feeling a bit secluded, and he's the younger brother, so his older brother beats up on him, and he feels like he really has no place. He has no friends until one day he kind of runs across this group of kids that are into skateboarding and into that culture, and he kind of takes a liking to them and ends up falling into that crowd. And it has that mix and feeling of that movie Kids from back in the day, where it's literally shining a light on what it's like to be a kid. Except for in this particular movie, it takes it from the 90s. It's in the title of the movie. It's sort of that era of music, that era of clothing and style and everything, and the soundtrack reflects that as well. And I really enjoyed the movie a whole lot. And I thought for Jonah's first directorial debut, and it's incredible that we're getting all these first-time director/actors in this year, and them all doing such a phenomenal job with the work that they've done as directors. And this is no exception. I thought he really did a good job of tapping into what this was. I don't know. I haven't seen enough side interviews to know if he based this off of his own life loosely, or if it's something that of someone else that he knows. But it just feels very authentic in the way that it's, one, shot, and two, just told. And it never really feels completely like it's a movie. It almost just feels like you're just there, and you're this slice of life, day in the life kind of thing, where things just are happening in an organic fashion, and it's not like it's a movie, like this is setting up for this thing to happen and this is going for this thing to happen. It's just like these things are just happening naturally because they're going day to day and doing just kid stuff or young adult stuff. And I just thought the performances all around were just real and authentic, so much so that I don't know that, because other than the actors I name, and the mom is played by Catherine Waterston, other than them, I don't know or recognize any of the other actors that were in it, the young kids that were the other skaters. And I get the feeling that they may not have been actual actors and were real life skateboarders possibly, and
Right.
doing this as acting.
Right.
But they did a good job, and their performances feel real and authentic to, like I said, it just really feels like you're kind of a part of it, and it's not really almost documentary style, but without it being an actual documentary. And I just thought it was a really good movie, and I enjoyed it from start to finish.
Nice. Now I've been wanting to see it. It looks pretty excellent. But nope, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I think, went wide this week.
Yeah.
I think it opened limited last week, and so obviously it'll be around for a little while, hopefully. I think if people want to kind of try and give this one a try, and it's I it feels like one of those movies that it could easily slip under the radar just because of the nature of it. And other than when I kept seeing the preview for it in front of other movies that I was seeing, I haven't seen too much commercials or marketing outside of that. So
No,
I don't know
either.
how long it'll stay,
Right.
but I would suggest it to people. I thought it was pretty good.
Nice.
And the other movie I saw this weekend, um, I didn't know if I was going to see this movie just because the trailer really didn't do much for me. I really didn't feel like it was anything special. And that movie is Hunter Killer. Had you seen any of this preview?
Hunter Killer. I say
See,
this as I'm typing
they
it
did
and,
such a
looking
horrible.
this up.
You would think that the people that work for Netflix marketed this movie because I've not seen
that's
any commercials for this movie, and most people don't know what it is. But
The
if you've been to
Gerard
the movies
Butler
recently, you
film.
may have saw the preview. What were you saying?
It's a Gerard Butler film, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's got Gerard. What?
I'm thinking. I'm like, have I seen the trailer for this? I don't remember. I thought I had, and I thought it looked terrible. But then I'm like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think I did. Maybe I did see the trailer, and I was like, oh God, Gerard Butler, what has he done with his career? This poor guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The trailer is horrible. And it's got not only Gerard Butler in it, but Gary Oldman's in it, and Common is in it as well.
Okay.
And it's just okay. So the basic premise of the movie is that Gerard Butler is kind of this off the grid captain, and he gets called to be captain of this sub that has to go into Russian waters because a coup has happened in Russia, and some militant Secretary of Defense for Russia has essentially staged this coup and overthrown the president of Russia, and it's their job, along with a strike team, to kind of go in and rescue the Russian president in order to prevent World War III, essentially. And the premise sounds like it's something straight out of the 90s. In fact, there's an aspect of it that if you were to take something like The Hunt for Red October and take a spoonful of Under Siege and put it in and mix it up, that's kind of what the movie is.
Okay.
But I actually really liked the movie, and I was
I had a feeling you were going to say this.
I was stunned. I didn't expect that it would. I thought it's so weird because based on the previews and based on what this movie is, it seems like this is something that I would be sitting at home watching on Netflix. And the other two movies I mentioned watching on Netflix was something I could see myself going to the movie theater and watching.
Right.
So it's very weird position that I find that these movies are in. But I say that, and yet I still thoroughly enjoyed the movie. And I think it was because it did a lot in the sense of having that old 90s throwback feel of a movie, but without the level of cheesiness and campiness and over the top unbelievability that those movies tend to have in the 90s. It has a lot of those sensibilities of that feeling, but it does it in a way that it's really respectful and not trying to do too much in terms of you watching this and starting to roll your eyes. It all feels I mean, there's definitely some level of storytelling there, but not in a way that it leaves you kind of just shaking your head. It's all done in service of telling this sort of suspenseful thriller. And I say thriller, it's not necessarily a thriller, but it has that sort of level to it. And I mean, the performances were solid. There was nothing that you're going to say, oh, this, He should be getting an award for this kind of thing. But it just was all sort of overall this very solid movie, and in a way that I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to going into it, and especially based off of the trailer. It just ended up being something that was surprising, to, as a lack of a better word. It just really surprised the hell out of me that it was enjoyable as it was.
Yeah, I still don't know. I still don't know if I'd bother seeing it, but because it looked really bad.
Oh yeah, I'm trust me, I'm right there with you. I thought the trailer was shot horribly. Even the end of the trailer, the way it ends on this such an anticlimactic note in the trailer, and then the words just "Hunter Killer" comes up. Even the title is just so sounds so generic.
Yeah, exactly.
But it actually refers to a type of sub, from what I can understand, a class level of sub.
Oh, okay.
Or killer. But yeah, other than not knowing, when you don't know that and you're just listening to the name of it, it doesn't sound like anything good. And I think it was based off of a book, so I think that's probably also why it ended up being better than I thought it was going to be, because it wasn't just something someone sort of came up with naturally. It was based off of some other material. So yeah, I really did enjoy it.
Nice. Anything else you saw in the theater or at all? Or?
Well, that, and then we talked about Bad Times at the El Royale. Yeah. That was the other thing I saw. But yeah, that was it.
I'm dying to see, and I guess it's because it's in super limited release right now. It's in like 2 screens, but it goes wide in I think a week, and that's Suspiria. I'm really interested to see that now. I was unsure about that after I remember seeing the very first trailer, but I don't know. Based on things I think we've heard about it since, I'm like, all right, I have to see this movie.
I feel like that's this year's Mother. Like, people are either going to hate it or love it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely, I mean, again, based purely off that first trailer and even the second trailer. I feel like the second trailer makes it look a little more, what's the word? Kind of, man, I'm blanking on what's the word. Because the first trailer just made it look so kind of just esoteric, just kind of artsy for artsy's sake almost, you know? Mm-hmm. But the second trailer made it look a little more conventional, I guess. A little more. But I could still see that it's going to be, like you're saying, the kind of movie that people are like, oh God, this is terrible. But I also feel like those people wouldn't even bother seeing it. Like, just because of the way it looks.
Yeah, I can picture that. And have you seen the original movie?
No, I've never seen the original.
Me either. But again, it seems like one of those movies, the original one was one that either you seem to love or hate. And there's people, when they seem to love it, they really love it and really seem to hold it to a high standard. So it leaves me in a position of feeling, do I want to try and watch the original before watching this, or do I just want to just go ahead and try and watch this one?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just want to see this one, kind of just enjoy this experience, and then maybe go and revisit the original or something if I like it. I don't know. That's kind of where I am. There
was one movie that I started watching. I didn't get a chance to finish it, and it was on Netflix, and it was The Apostle, which is the one I mentioned, I think, last week, with directed by Gareth Evans, who did the Raid and Raid 2, and stars Dan Stevens. But I didn't get a chance to finish watching that, so I'll probably talk about that next week.
And we're pretty much out of time, but I was going to say really quick, kind of off topic, but I didn't really watch last season, I think, Big Bang Theory, like, at all. And that's a show I really have always enjoyed. I've watched pretty much all of it, but the last season or two, I just kind of dropped off. Haven't really watched it anymore. And then we know that this season's the last season. So the other day, I'm like, okay, maybe I still really kind of want to watch this last season. So I watched the first episode of this season. I think they're like 5 or 6 episodes in now. Something like that, yeah. And I watched the first episode, and I'm like, yeah, this show it's not the same. Like, I mean, I don't know. I get that first episode kind of feels like the second half of like a more of an event episode, you know, but still, I don't know. I mean, I might just keep watching it because I'm still just kind of curious to watch the final season and, you know, see what they do to wrap up the entire series. But I think it's good that they're wrapping it up. If anything, I feel like it's overstayed its welcome slightly. Have you been watching it lately?
Yeah, in fact, I don't know if we had talked about it on air or off, but there's a few seasons that I hadn't watched, and ironically, the seasons that I didn't watch were the seasons when Kaylee Cuoco had the short haircut.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that I specifically did it that way on purpose, but I just remember falling off and then jumping back when she had longer hair. It
She got her hair back.
the weirdest sort of coincidence in the way that it happened. I didn't plan it that way necessarily, but it just sort of happened that way. But yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think the reason why I watch it still is one because I do enjoy the characters, and yeah, I kind of want to see where the whole thing just ends on a series finale. And it is, I will say, it is the type of show where if you watch the first 2 or 3 seasons, you wouldn't have to have had to watch any of the other seasons and could just watch the series finale and probably be just fine.
Yeah,
but
probably.
at the same time, it's kind of one of those things where I watch it and every episode I at least laugh out loud once. And that's good enough. I mean, I think for me, for a series that's been on as long as it's been on, and not every joke is going to land or be a home run, but if you can get me to laugh at least once, then for this show, I'm kind of cool with that at this point. And in fact, I would say last week's episode, their sort of Halloween themed episode where they're dressed up.
Yeah.
You should check that one out. I think one of the people who don't get enough credit in terms of how good of an actor he is and how much of a person that really gets some of the lion's share, I think, in my opinion, who gets some of the lion's share of the good jokes is the character of Howard, played by Simon Helberg.
Yeah.
And last week's episode, in the beginning part of it, his Halloween costume was Sheldon, and he dresses up kind of like Sheldon, and he does such an incredible job of doing Jim Parsons playing the character of Sheldon that I had to keep rewinding it just because he had the little affectations that Jim Parsons does as Sheldon, just like everything. And it was just so good. And so I would say, yeah, if you haven't watched all of them, if you just at least watch that one just for that, it's pretty funny.
No, I'll probably keep watching them because that's the thing. It's the kind of show that's nice. They're 30 minutes, or if you're watching it without ads, it's even less. And, you want to sit down and even kind of do something else while you're watching it. You can still, it's the kind of show you don't have to totally pay attention to.
Absolutely.
I'll probably still try to watch the rest of this season. But yeah, I will say, watching that one episode, you're talking about like at least laughing once. And I was like, I think I did laugh once or twice, but yeah, for the most part, all the jokes, I'm like, these just aren't landing for me anymore. Like, and I think just because the show has evolved as much as it has, and I get that, but it's like, I love those first few seasons when it was really just the core group and you've got Penny across the hall and they're just kind of doing their thing. And obviously the show's evolved and now, couple, they're married and they have all these serious relationships. And it's just, I don't know, it feels like the show went down a road, as I guess it naturally did, where it was just like, yeah, I get why it did this, but it's not the same anymore. I'm like,
Yeah. No, it's not. But I do still enjoy it, even though it's long in the tooth. And I completely agree that I'm glad it's wrapping up as of this season, just because it's a show that no matter how much more sort of down that road it would have gotten in terms of how it could just keep devolving and not being funny, I would have found myself sticking with it just because I just sort of wanted to see it all kind of go until it ends. And so knowing that they're wrapping up with this season, I'm like, that's for me a thumbs up, just because it's like they've had a good run, and now it's time to end it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, with that, it is time to wrap things up for us. As always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can find links to those accounts on our website. Just look over on the right-hand side. I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
Thanks for listening.